The Batman is the most excited I've been for a DC film for a very long time. I have to just gotta say how goddamn amazing The Batman really is. This film is the film I want companies to look at when it comes to comic book films. This world is so gritty and lived in, which, aside from the obvious and terrible idea to build a city underwater level next to the fucking coast, its whole world just generally makes sense aside from that. The fear that Batman instills is brilliantly handled in this, as it's not just the criminals who are scared of him, and it's an excellent description for this version of Bruce Wayne and Batman. It really breaks down how bad things have gotten in Gotham, and that Bruce is still struggling. There's a reason he calls himself Vengeance, it's because of where he's at mentally. He's still technically in that angry man kind of phase of Batman. But over the course of the film, he becomes the Batman that Gotham needs, rather than just, fulfilling his own desires. This movie feels so much like the Arkham games, and I fucking love that. It's pure gold, plain and simple. It's absolutely gorgeous. I love these versions of the characters as well. Even ones I was pretty mixed on at first got so much better. The Riddler is possibly one of the best iterations of the character. Yet another goofy character that isn't taken seriously and also doesn't have many appearances is given the love and attention he desperately deserves. He is by far one of the most twisted versions of this character. It takes the Arkham Origins versions of him, mixes him with a bit of Seven, and it just makes it 10 times better. While also being a dark film, it does have to remember it's a comic book movie and it does still have fun with it. But it also has to pull off the dark stuff, and when I mean dark, it does get dark. But it's still a PG-13, which is not terrible, but really this film should have been an R rating for me, but merchandise. The partnership that Batman and Gordon have forged here is probably one of the best versions of it. I find it is a really difficult thing to balance between Batman and Gordon, because we're not here for Jimbo over here, we're here for Batman. But in this it feels like he's actually working with Batman, and they both need each other's assistance. Also, on another side note, the Batmobile reveal is pure fucking greatness. I wasn't sold on the design at first, but holy shit, that chase scene was pure excellence. Which is another thing. This film's actually not as heavily action-packed as I thought it would be, but when it comes in, it's an absolute S-tier performance. But with that being said, I do have complaints. One of them is kind of spoilery, well, for the most part they're spoilery, but I'm going to try to avoid it as best as I can. As you can probably tell, you should be watching this Batman film, if you haven't already, or at least go and see it multiple times like I will. The first complaint I have is the lack of Alfred in this movie. I guess because Andy is a very busy guy, but I was really hoping for a lot more Alfred. God knows that this version of Bruce needs it, but it's kind of sad because we could have gotten a unique or similar version of this line from Mask of the Phantasm.
Vengeance blackens the soul, Bruce. I always feared you would become that which you fought against. You walk the edge of that abyss every night. But you haven't fallen in, and I thank heaven for that.
The changes Bruce goes through are far more organic, rather than just being assisted by Alfred, who's always been a mentor figure, and also with Selina as well, which, again, is probably one of the best versions of this character. Although I still don't like her mask. I get it's minimalist, and she wouldn't have too much time to make this stupid mask to look like a cat, but it doesn't really strike very much as Catwoman. And now into the spoilery territory, there's a lot to dive in here, so if you want to go straight to the conclusion, here's your timestamp on screen now, have fun. So this movie taking place 2 years into Bruce's venture as Batman, it really dives into the early days in a very interesting way. Now I think that early Batman is probably some of the most interesting of Batman. Because really we have the status quo when it comes to Batman, the villains are known, Batman's known, Gotham knows exactly what they're getting in for. But in the early days they didn't know him, and of course there's a lot more corruption, and Gotham is probably worse than it is when Batman is around. But this is kind of flipped on its head, as Batman says that it's actually gotten worse with him being Batman, and he's still questioning whether or not he should be doing it. And of course there's this constant theming of the Riddler and Cameron on the talks of vengeance, which is why I mentioned that line from Mask of the Phantasm. Bruce doesn't kill, but the Riddler and Catwoman would gladly kill. And the reason is, this time around, is focusing entirely on the corruption leveled in Gotham. Following the death of the Waynes and also the establishing of the Arkham families as well, we get to see what happened to the core of Gotham as it became this absolute cesspit. it turned out it takes a lot of cues from The Long Halloween, particularly with Catwoman, Carmine Falcone, and of course the legacy of the Waynes. And the power play that goes in as we see how deep-rotted Gotham really is, and the Riddler's sick and twisted plan and how it comes to a head in the end. Riddler exploits the more vulnerable people by becoming this more Instagram kind of celebrity.
You so fucking precious when you smile.
But also it's all portrayed in a very realistic light. It's more like 4chaners, essentially, that team up with him at the end, which also kind of covers a point I've always found really weird with the Riddler. How does he get these armoured thugs or anyone that would actually willingly work with him when he's just this much of a prat? Who the fuck would want to work with him? Oh yeah, people just as sick and twisted as he is. This film does leave a lot to be opened up for interpretation, such as what will Batman be doing in year 3? Will Batman be working more in line with the GCPD as it starts to go clean house? And essentially what could happen with this version of Batman is so interesting. Like, I can't wait for what they'll bring out next. So in conclusion, I'm really glad that DC is going down these standalone films with filmmakers that are actually allowed to filmmake rather than, the Disney process. And I'm so glad this came out in the way it did. Yeah, it's a little bit bloated, and also the Penguin was kind of pointless, but he's just so much fun, I couldn't care. I love him. I would have loved to see more Alfred and also more Bruce, having to adjust to being Bruce Wayne instead of just Batman. But these are all things that will probably get addressed in the future, in the next film or whatever. But arguably, this is the most unique and probably the best on-screen Batman we've ever had. Definitely watch this if you haven't already. And I would say this is probably one of my favourite Batmans since the Nolan era. And to conclude this, why on earth is there this many fucking people going online saying that they're now terrible films? You know you can have multiple of a thing that you like, right? Hey guys, thank you for checking out my video and making it to the end. I do want to add on a couple of little extra things. The first thing was the extended marketing for the film, which was absolutely brilliant. The Ratala website that came out after the film released, as well as at the end of the marketing now, where the GCPD has now seized the website. But before that, we got confirmation of the Riddler comic book that will be detailing Riddler's first year in Gotham. We also got the deleted scene of the Joker as well, and now I think there was another bit which was I can't remember what that was, but now the site has been taken over by the GCPD, which I think is just a very clever way of marketing the film. So with the release of the Joker deleted scene, it gave us a glimpse as to what Joker will look like in this version of Batman, and I have to say it's very interesting, a very unique design without a doubt, and I'm actually quite glad though that this scene was deleted from the film. It did kind of ruin a lot of the theming for the film, because it kind of just explained it all away with Joker, because the connection that between Batman and Joker. But it will be quite interesting to see this in the future, but at the moment I'm kind of glad we did get to see it though. I'm really happy we got to see it, but I'm also glad it wasn't in the final film. Hey, I'm sorry for the dip in audio quality yet again. Twice is already bad enough, but unfortunately, I have to record this now. I have, as you can tell from my voice, I have now got COVID. So there are some other videos that I am working on, but for the most part I will just be recovering. There are some more videos coming down the pipeline. Some of them I've already pre-recorded. I just need to edit them and you'll get them when they're ready. So again, I want to thank you all for watching. If you made it this far into the video, like, subscribe and whatnot, do what you will, and I shall hopefully see you soon. But first of all, I'm going to go for a fucking lie down. Take care, guys.